on.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Yes, we have Joey, I'm sorry, I always forget your first name. Rowena. Do you have anything?
Yes.
I know
And
Joey doesn't, but.
we have 2 positions on the Development Review Board that we need to have filled. One of them is a reappointment, and then we have a position to be filled, one term. And we have,
These people agreed to it?
these people have agreed to it for a 3-year.
Okay.
Which one's the reappointment?
Jock is a reappointment.
So we're gonna look for
I would make a motion
Yeah, make a motion,
to approve both.
reappoint Jock and
Jock Vessel
Yeah.
you get a second on that?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed.
And that would be effective as of
today.
Today. Is that it?
That's all I have.
You don't have anything?
I'm just
right?
here.
Okay. All right,
Yes.
so we have 2, actually approval minutes for 7:13, 7:18, and 7:27. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes, or approve the minutes.
The only thing I'd like to change is, the only minutes for the special meeting was, last page, top paragraph. We don't want them to tell us what they're working on, we want them to tell us what they accomplished. Because we don't want to give out secrets, you know what I mean, for the public, that would be the only thing I changed.
Okay. Motion still standing?
Yes.
And I seconded it.
All
That
those,
change.
okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye, but I have to abstain on the 13th meeting because I wasn't at it.
Okay.
Is that the- everyone was-
That's set
You
the tax
were
rate.
you were gone on the 18th.
So I'll have to abstain from the 18th.
As soon as Michael's not ready, we'll hear an update from the town administrator.
Alright. So a few things. So first on the list here is the highway crew is looking for approval to fix the pole that was damaged at the playground. It needs to do it, so we just need your approval to get it done.
And that includes like fixing the fence and potentially, I guess, contracting with, or asking Vermont Electric to re-drill a hole.
I believe so, yeah, because they have the pole and the extra.
I was going to ask, is there
Cameras.
anything buried around there?
What's that?
Is there anything buried around there we need to call Big Safe or anything like that?
I don't know. I'm assuming that Vermont Electric would know protocol, right? If they're doing the whole drilling.
If they're heading it up,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
For the
Yeah.
cameras, I think they'll it's still being unknown how that, what needs to be done for that. Thank you.
and the party, responsible party is paying for all, right?
Okay.
Make a motion.
To have the town boys take care of the pole and get the electrical company here to drill the hole and fix the things.
It's pretty much just a fix.
Just to fix it.
Fix it, yeah.
Motion on the table, do we hear a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
So the second one, this is from the rec committee, and we've been talking about what to do with the ice skating rink. And what they were thinking, because it seems like everyone wants to see it back at Davis Park, instead of putting a permanent structure down, they would like to purchase a trailer instead. And that's we can do that, we could probably do that this week with the funds that were raised for it, over by the students. And there's a place in Irisburg that is a trailer dealer, and they have a, yeah. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they have a handful of trailers that were hail damaged. They said they're very slight, but they had the insurance insurance person come up, and they're looking at readjusting all those prices to significantly reduce it. So we could probably get a trailer from them pretty cheap, a closed trailer, 7x16. That was the dimensions they were looking for. And so we could get it this week if we get approval for doing that.
That's the word that they're looking for.
That would be, yes, that
Yes.
would, yeah. And so instead of permanent
Building
structure,
something
you can take it out along with the ice skating rink in the spring.
That's very good.
I like the idea, it's
Mhm.
movable, cause I couldn't see putting a
Right.
permanent structure in the middle of Davis Park.
It's a park,
Right.
it's for buildings.
Yeah. No, I like that idea. I make a motion to approve that, of buying a trailer.
And where would it be stored? Like, do we have this in the summertime off duty hours? Do we have to discuss that? I mean, maybe that's immaterial, I guess.
Do they have, well, let's bring it up now, do they have one down at the county garage for something like
That
this?
was my thought.
You know, or across from Law Electric or something.
Cause I'm thinking that, yeah, that will work, but I'm thinking that probably the town boys are the ones that are gonna be putting it up and putting it back, so.
Like I said, probably ultimately immaterial, we'll figure that piece out.
Okay. So there's a motion, I can second that. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed.
Third one for approval. I was contacted by Northwest Regional Planning about the next phase for their streetscape walkthrough that we've been doing. And this is going to be more of a community event. It's supposed to be a Thirsty Burger on August 16th. And they were looking for having pizzas and soft drinks served there, and they were wondering if that would be covered by the town. They asked me about it. They said 5 pizzas and drinks. They said probably estimated $200 total.
I make a motion to accept that.
You were a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any more motion passed?
What time are you thinking about them?
6 o'clock. It's planning commission time, so 6 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go outside.
When we post people's order, then. Who seconded that?
Hold on.
Okay, so that's good. So last week we had the credit union walkthrough for the post office space for the supervisor union. They are very interested in the space, and Sherry said the supervisor union could move if with given enough time.
Yep,
So
they already said it whenever time we needed it, they could easily work from home.
So they're just looking for the downstairs.
Yep.
Just the downstairs.
downstairs space, and they're open to new renovations there and that, but like nothing's confirmed. But they're interested in that space, and I emailed them the full floor plans of that section of the building, and they said they'd get back in a couple of weeks on next steps. So that's good, and that's happening. As you heard through our email for the electric sign, we got Slim's working on that, and we're just readjusting the quote for D&D on the new way to get power to it. Hopefully, maybe this is sometime this week, or hopefully next week we get that situated again. And I'm developing my business cards while I have those I have them customized, but I have to get them printed.
Alright.
And then I adjusted the parking agreement to say bi-yearly review. So that's ready for Andy's signature,
Okay.
and that's what I have.
Alrighty, as you know from the email traffic, town, one of the town vehicles was subject to vandalism last night. Looked like a attempted theft of fuel. All they did was break break the fuel pump, trying to get in, couldn't get the fuel out. So, police were there this morning. They have the individual on camera. The police said Michael was able to upload the videos to a thumb drive
Yep. And then I was able to see it.
to share it with
So,
you. And Jason's already pulled the box off the truck, and when I was there at 4 o'clock, he's already put the fuel pump in and just got to connect some hoses and put the box back on. So, I mean, it's $200 part roughly, and time and labor. So it wasn't brutal. They have been locking all, making sure all the keys are in the building, locking it up the last couple of weeks, because I'm not sure if it was the same individual, but they've seen somebody kind of scoping things out, so they've been a little wary already. So they are taking precautions, and they do have multiple cameras. So, I mean, they're doing the best they can to secure things. I didn't think to ask on my way out, I didn't see it on my way out, and maybe we need to consider, getting that gate that goes in.
Are they still leaving it open all week?
Yeah, it looks like it. So I don't know if maybe we want to make sure that's closed at the end of every shift, get that reinstituted. I'll have to ask Jason about that. Not that it wouldn't stop the walk around, but it would stop driving off with something. So I'll discuss that with Jason. Dan Seeley's grant. I didn't know what the acronym stood for, but basically it was a grant to put stone in ditch to slow the impeding of water. That has been finalized. It allowed the town to put 224 cubic yards of stone in ditching, mostly up on Whiteman Hill, out that way, Gilmet Road, at no expense to the town. The town was reimbursed for all efforts. So that was we thank Dan Seeley for that, and getting that grant. I think it was $12,000 worth of.
Yeah.
Everything was costed out to about $12,000.
And so part of that email that they sent is that in that letter would he just has to submit that now for the invoices. Okay. And
Should be really.
they'll be good.
Yep.
So
Follow up from last meeting, the town was able to went down and took care of the blackberry bushes and miscellaneous stuff that were growing up inside the playground area. So that was done the next day. Jason did go to Ricoy's and look at that. His question was, he had many questions for us to consider. It's going to cost to replace the culverts underground there that are collapsing. It'd be like $3,500. Do we want to patch it, or do we want to do it this year? And then there was the other question of right of way. Jason's under the impression, I think somebody did some research for him, that we are permitted a 50-foot right of way up to there, or deeded. It sounds like
If he was to build on that.
well, and according to Jason, he's already in the right of way, and if we allowed him to do what he wanted, he would be within like 4 feet of that. Do we want to give?
That would fall under something.
Yeah, those are all things to consider. But I think what he was asking us is, since we as the town potentially had to do some repair work, I think my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, was he wanted to know if we could move it to give him to give him greater, and maybe I don't know,
What's the cost of that?
well, I mean, just to pay, just to fix the pipe now as is, was gonna be $3,500. I mean, I'm guessing if you divert it over further and kind of loop it back around and connect it, it's gonna be it'll be more than that.
I was under the impression it followed an old stream.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know that you'd be able to do something like that. I guess.
I don't know either. I mean, the fact that it's been underground for 100 years, I don't know if what that changes for things and what the rules are behind that. I mean, there obviously hasn't been a stream there for
It
a
sounds
long
like
time.
it leads into the entailing question.
Nobody understands how to deliver.
Alan, any ideas on that?
It's just a dried up stream, I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know what they would do
I
with
just
it.
don't want to do something that you get slapped for down the road.
Well, I mean, then we have to decide, is that something we want to do as a town? I mean, unfortunately, when we bought that property, it was there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it wasn't,
But it's the town's responsibility to take care of the culvert, I believe.
Right, and that's fine, we can do that,
Right.
but I mean, and I think we can legitimately fix that. I mean, I think what was asked of us at the last meeting was, could we kick it over so he could do what he wants to do? And are we willing to do, that was my understanding.
Okay.
Are we willing to consider that?
I don't know what the cost is going to be the difference.
Well, I mean, then is there, I mean, I don't know the complexities of it, I mean, do we have to go in and like you probably know, like redeed it, like easements and like all that, I mean, it could be quite a process.
If we already have a 50-foot right of way, we moved it from this side of the right of way to that side.
We're just
of the
thinking we
right
have
of
a 50-foot right now, right? We don't
Right.
know for sure.
But
That's according to, somebody did some research for him, I can't remember. Huh? No, it wasn't you.
I was gonna suggest have Michael,
Maybe do some digging on that.
So deep,
Yeah,
deep.
um,
Well, I don't know that we could change a right of way, because if we were given the right of way, we don't have the ability to,
but was it tied to that property?
whoever
It's deeded.
gave it to us,
And if
probably
you
the railroad.
push it too close to the tracks, then you're dealing with the railroad, right?
Yeah, I don't.
So,
See, those are all good questions that we need information for.
Okay, so that's, I mean,
So
And
this
also
is-
if we can even move the spring. It's a little spring that runs down through
Right.
there.
So you said contact the LCT.
yeah, see if they can offer up any information or even where to go with questions
but I think
like
I think your first step would probably be to look at the deeds down through there. Ma'am?
With the easements and stuff, that's, you're getting into the legal side because you've got the 50-foot. And it's not whether you're on this side or you're in the middle or where that easement is there, you'd have to move the entire easement of the 50 feet over.
Right.
If you're gonna do that, because if you have per the deed that you can't build in the easement, it doesn't matter where that culvert's going. You can't build in that 50-foot easement.
Right.
So,
But those things were given to us, I'm not sure we have the authority to move it even if we wanted to.
The easement. it would
Might have to
be
go
over.
back to whoever gave us the right of way to have it moved.
yeah.
And if it came from the railroad, that might be a challenge.
that could be a big challenge.
So I guess we'll have Michael do that. And I mean, it doesn't sound like it's anything we're not gonna be doing any moving or anything, so would our advice just to patch it for now?
It's been complained about for a long time.
Very long
Said it
time.
was gonna take $3,500 to replace. I'm thinking we just bite the
Fix
bullet
it.
and fix it.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're gonna consider these other things with that, and if we end up, anything comes of that, that $3,500 will be,
Owner's expense.
make it owner's expensive in the future.
Yeah, if we end up cutting a deal for him,
Yeah.
where it can go outside of or the easement can move, because we get the 100 approvals it's gonna take, and
So if
then
the
it should
owner
be
gives us-
his expense, not ours.
So if the owner gave us easement here, and the owner would be the one that say, okay, I wanna put the easement over here versus here. And it's the owner who has that decision then, right?
They can, but they have to go through the legal, you'd wanna talk to an
Right, for a
attorney
lawyer and all
to,
that stuff.
to dispense with the one and
And start
move up,
with the
because it follows, that easement
Yeah.
follows the land.
How big is his backyard? 50-foot easement is probably his backyard.
I think he is pretty close.
Well,
Yeah, I don't know what the dimensions of the lot are.
Well, I know as Jason said, he's already into the easement with his lean-to that's off the back of whatever building's there. So he's already halfway into the easement with his lean-to. So,
Yeah, because that sinkhole was
right behind the
10
back.
feet, 10 feet, maybe 15 feet off the back of his house,
So is it got a hole?
or the back
We
of it.
patched it once, didn't we?
I think Scott said years ago they did,
Okay.
but it gets washed out and it just follows all the way down to the river and goes through all the piping. My fear is that the holes get bigger, and if a small animal or a child, something small gets down in there and nobody's watching, it's not gonna be good.
So we wanna just authorize Jason to fix a new culvert? Or do we want to just have him patch it as it's been patched before, for another temporary fix? I guess that's kind of where we're at in that,
Are we liable if someone gets hurt?
probably.
And then we just fix it. And then what, go with Tim said, if
we
something
did-
happens down the road, it'll be at the owner's expense.
Alright, fair enough. Let's see.
That's true, I think.
And let's see, last thing is paving, Hutchins was in town and it looks like paving will happen sometime in this month. By the end. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Sherry, buildings report.
The roof at the post office is just about completed, it's all buttoned up, all the new rubber is on. I don't have a final bill yet, but we did get a second bill for more material. All of the insulation on the roof, because you had to tear both roofs up, all the insulation was bad, it was all soaking wet, weighed so much, it was all the way through the whole thing, so you had to replace all of it. He then also had to take off, flashing, and flashing, some bricks were all like disintegrating because the amount of water that's been held up against it for so long. So he fixed it, but he fixed it with plywood and pressure treated and stuff like that, because matching the brick and getting the expense of that would cost more. So he's got that much done, so the extra insulation and all that was another 15,000. So for the extra wood, all the extra parts and pieces he needed, so that was a bill I just submitted, I just gave that to Chris yesterday, I sent it on. He will be putting the stone, he's on vacation this week, and he'll have the stone back on when he comes back from vacation, and it'll be completed. But all of it has new rubber at this point in time. Still waiting for a call back for the gentleman about the heat pump for them, the fire station for upstairs. And also waiting for the quote to come back for here. Thinking pretty much there.
Okay, water and sewer last week, Alan and myself, actually helped bring Alan's. Alan doesn't really have a position on the select board, and with everything that I have going on, I have talked to Alan about this. He'd be willing to on the water and sewer with me, if there's anyone that has anything against it, or all, that's, I'm just, yeah, so, do we need a motion for that, or just ask him that question? Everyone's good with it, I'll let it go. That being said, we had a meeting with Andy Derby and Simon's, I forget their name now.
Simon's operating,
Yeah.
Lane.
Yeah, that's Lane.
Jeremy.
We had Jeremy. And we had a sit-down meeting with Andy Derby because of the project Andy would like to do down at the other end of town. And Simon's came in and, we talked quite a while on different pieces and parts, what he would like to do. And in the end, it's the way I interpret it, it sounds like Andy needs to go back to his engineer and plan, this is what we want to do with the property, this is what we're estimating for. So it's basically a blueprint on what he's doing, so when he comes back, he'll have that, and we can better make a decision involving that.
was the issue raised that Alan defined the other week about what rates he would pay, industrial or
We
otherwise?
talked about that. Yeah. Seemed to be okay with the industrial.
Is industrial different than commercial? Or is it the
It's
same?
10 times the residential.
So
Yeah,
significant-
commercial is in the middle.
Commercial's in the middle?
So that went well. When Navy gets information, he's gonna let us know and we'll set up another meeting to talk through. I don't wanna hold him up or be responsible for holding him up, so. The bridge and the sewer tank, the other end of 105 here, we're still waiting for approval, the way I understand it, to change things up so we're not pumping it 3 times a day. I have not heard any approval as of yet, when they can do it, or what they're gonna do.
Is there any impact from the K-Tech information that you indicated? So
Apparently it's all coming from our regular metal. It's not either.
it isn't, okay.
That's the way I understood it.
So you're still waiting on it here?
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
if this is sewage that wasn't accounted for before, and I don't know how
Technically,
Our Lady of the Meadows gets their bill. I mean, if you have a house, you buy water and you pay the same amount of sewage.
well, they're gonna be pumping the water in to make the sewage, right?
I understand that, but if they were paying the same rates, or whether, like at K-Tech, if it had been K-Tech that was violating, they wouldn't be paying the same rates, are they?
They would pay this, yeah, their sewer usage would be based on the water usage.
Okay.
That's the same way with Our Lady of the Meadows, although it is at the commercial rate, it's
Mhm.
not the residential rate.
Right. Okay.
And they do pay a really significant water bill.
Sure.
And then we have the break-in that we talked about at the prior meeting. I have heard nothing more on that as to where they are in the investigation. I'm not heard from the sheriff, so. Other than that, that's all I have.
And we are pursuing security there?
We have
Cameras.
budgeted cameras. We need to talk. I was hoping to talk to Andre because he had a system that he used for roughly $1,000, but it's been talked about and it's supposed to be.
I should be a top priority for sure.
Because he's not wrong. I mean, that is a,
Well,
it is a
that's why it was brought up before, because it's
a threat.
A hit for us, yeah,
it's a, yeah.
take the town out.
So,
Canadian terrorists.
We don't know, I mean, we had some sneaking across the border again,
Doesn't
so.
need to be foreign either.
I'm just
Yeah.
kidding around. Okay.
all right. So parks, playgrounds, and cemeteries.
Talked about the playground issue, and I have nothing else.
Other business. I'll bring up 50 Farrar Street.
Ah, I thought this out, okay. I didn't want to say
John's
that.
doing a good job with his crew, from what I can see,
Mhm.
getting stuff out of there for those. I put out a quick email. There's a few places in town like that building. My best description of the building is I walked in, the floors seem to be solid, but there's probably 2 years worth of garbage
Mhm.
within the building. And I mean, up against the walls, closets are just filled with garbage. And I didn't go through the entirety of the house, I didn't do the basement, so I don't know what could have been down there.
He said he looked down there, but he didn't go down and see on the flashlight, but as far as he could see, he didn't see anything down there.
So I'm thinking, as soon as we get it cleaned up, where we can, yeah, take a look at it, discuss what we want to do with it. Now, I know Wally had mentioned, what is that, humanity?
Yeah, Michael's still working on
Yeah.
making that connection.
So I'm thinking that might be an option to do something like that, but my thoughts are is if we can get something for it, if it's in halfway decent shape, to keep it on the list, the grand list.
I agree. We would have to put it in the newspaper and stuff if we wanted to sell it.
Not necessarily, no, well, it's going through Habitat for Humanity.
Well, no, not for Habitat for Humanity, but if somebody else was interested, we still should put it out there.
Well, there's a process to follow.
Exactly.
I don't know, I'd wanna put some stringent, contingencies on it, because you don't wanna let it go, I wanna say cheap, and have,
The minimal done,
Well, the thing
and have
is-
it be another derelict rental property.
yes.
So there would have to be some strong stipulations if we wanna go that route versus deeding it to somebody. I don't know, I mean, I'm just saying, there are definitely different options we can consider, but I definitely don't want it to return to its current standing in anytime in the near future.
All right.
Yeah, I have another suggestion that you could investigate, is Champlain Housing Trust, where if you work with them, and what they do is they make inexpensive housing for people, but they want them nice, they want them upkept, and the people get grants and whatever to help them out to become homeowners. But anytime they go to, well, they go through things so that they don't default, you know, budgeting and all that, they have a whole bunch of programs for that. They also, if the people go to refinance, Champlain Housing Trust comes in and takes they want an appraisal of the place, an interior one, and they'll make the people fix whatever needs to be, bring it back up, you know, if there's cosmetic things or whatever. I know one case, the people taking the cabinet doors off. Before they could refinance with a lender, they had to get those cabinet doors back. I mean, that's how picky they get.
I've had similar options to look
Right.
into.
That might not, I mean, it is an option, but the way it works with Champlain Housing is they generally buy the land and then lease the house to the
Right.
people. So it actually reduces our grant list.
But they're, no, yes, they own the land and the people buy the house, but the people are paying, there's two tax bills. There's a tax bill for the land
Right.
that the housing trust, which then they turn around and charge the owners through their own way, and then the owners pay for the house. So the owners, we don't see it on the front that they're doing the two together, but they are, the owners do wind up paying both taxes.
Right, but the assessment on the land is reduced.
But still, I mean, that's where you have to decide, do you want to have somebody there and getting money and it's kept up well? Or, you know, having somebody have it and there's nothing where they're making sure it's kept up well and you've got a good homeowner.
Any other business?
Go ahead.
Sorry. As that paper I gave everybody that we all saw, we have that extra money. I would like to see that extra money, and I think Kylie mentioned it in an email, possibly, that we could use that to get maybe some more coverage through evenings and nights for the sheriff's department. Basically pay it back to them by having them send a sheriff a couple nights a week for the rest of the summer until we're back on the regular schedule. And then I think we need to revisit the contract and actually add in money for next summer, so we're not into the same shoes where we actually have the 40 hours during the week with someone doing school kids and that type of thing, and then somebody at night like we had before.
Do they know when that provision fell out?
It got, apparently must have got voted out because it was the new contract.
What,
and cutting money.
what was that a voted item, or was that a contractual item that got, when we were forming the budget, that got,
When we did the budget, we eliminated the additional coverage.
and what was the thought process behind that at the time?
I don't know. You were here when we did the budget. Oh, no, you weren't.
And,
I don't even remember. Do you?
I mean, that was,
We were looking to fund something else, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think that was just something, now hindsight, we shouldn't have done that. That
Well,
was one of the priorities we should have had.
I beg to disagree, okay? We shouldn't be accepting the fact that they want us to have daytime coverage. They want us to have daytime coverage. We're paying for it, okay? We're paying for it.
Oh, we're paying for it. I don't think it's they that want us to have the daytime coverage. I think it was something we set up a long time ago.
No, we
When
did
the
not
school
set
had
it.
we
I
had it through the
negotiated this particular agreement, okay? And the only clause that was in there was that we needed to abide by Enosburg's schedule because they only want to have one supervisor in the area, okay? That would respond to the two communities. Now, we were very specific, and I've heard it 10,000 times. Oh, you know, they're not as likely to, or they're just as likely to commit a crime on Tuesday morning as they are on Friday night. And I say, whole squad, okay? It's, that's not right. We're buying a product from them.
Mhm.
We need to be able to get what we want to purchase.
I mean, I was reviewing the contract. It sounds like the contract pretty much says they dictate when they're going to provide the service.
When they're
So-
here.
So unless we renegotiate the contract and say, you can put in a provision that gives us some say as to when they're going to be here, I don't know that we can really, in the current framework, we can tell them. I don't know, there's nothing in there that I saw that says we can tell them when to be here.
But
I
I think
mean-
3 years ago, 4 years ago, the first year that Andy Derby was on, we sat down and did a contract with the sheriff's department, and we are the ones that set up the first shift with Andre, with them having somebody here. We took over, we got a little bit of money in, I believe, and we had the school paid for here, and then we paid through the summer months to have them because there's so many school programs and so many kids walking the streets
Yeah.
and stuff, so we wanted a sheriff, or
That was a great
someone.
bonus.
Exactly, so,
So we were essentially getting 80 hours a week instead of 40 throughout the
Exactly.
summer months.
and the only time we really had to pay for it was just during the summertime, because the school took care of it the rest of the time.
Which is
So,
almost seems like the equivalent of what we got reimbursed for money.
Exactly.
It works out to basically 8 weeks of service.
Yeah,
So that $23,000, if you do some rough math on it, seems like basically 40 shifts or 8 weeks or 8 weeks worth of.
So we got the return money, and I guess the question is, do we use it for additional coverage?
Well, let's not move on from this other question about scheduling the
But-
evenings, which is what you're proposing.
But this was what was brought to the table at first, and I agree with the evenings. In my opinion, that's management.
421 hours.
How about this clause right here that says, these services shall be provided in patrols consisting of a minimum duration of 8 hours each for 5 days per week. The patrol activities shall primarily concentrate on areas of Richford mutually identified and determined to be priority areas by Franklin County Sheriffs and Richford.
Okay,
So we want people at night, because that's when the crimes are.
okay.
So
You want people-
Richford
I
says,
want both. I want someone here during the day when the kids are walking the streets. We have a lot of pedophiles that live around here. We have a lot of children that go to that day camp. We have a lot of children that go to the after-school program, that walk home, the back pass, all the way. We need somebody like that. And they're also taking care of other business while they're here during the day. They're not just sitting there doing this. I'm
not
saying
saying
take
that
this
they
extra
are.
money that they just gave us back and pay someone to come in and do the night shifts, pay the sheriff's department. 421 hours, I'll take care of the rest of the summer, and then we're back on schedule. We pay for 40,
well, no,
school
you,
pays for
because
40.
what we should have done and have done in the past is schedule additional shift coverage, holidays, cabbage night, although it's pretty much become a non-issue the last few years. But,
It's big when I was kid.
you know, those kinds of things. And the fact that the problems that were identified at that meeting, maybe because Andre was here, I don't know, but it wasn't about protecting the children other than the parade day, okay, which would also have been a time when we would have had additional sheriffs scheduled, if we hadn't deleted that money from the budget. And, you know, 90% of the problems identified at that meeting were nighttime provisions. They weren't they're not drinking on the steps at 9 o'clock in the morning. Maybe some days, okay?
I'm thinking
But-
some days they are.
Yeah, but some days, it's more likely that they're gonna be out there at night, okay? I think this is a windfall. I think that, I agree that it should be utilized for additional
Mhm.
sheriffs, okay? But I don't think we should be held hostage by them, which is what we are right now. We're buying a product that we don't want to pay for.
Well, in light of us not having the double coverage like we used to, that's where a lot of problems come from. We're the ones that took it out of the budget and had no one here for nights, because we kept Andre for during the day, because that's what we wanted.
I don't know that we
didn't
did
want it.
want
I
that.
wanted it.
No, I don't know that that was ever discussed, because he responds to things when he's here at the school as a resource officer, and he's free on days off from the school.
He still takes care of a lot of stuff even
I-
after the hours of
But
school.
he's free to the town, okay,
Mhm.
as the resource officer, and if they have a in-session day or something,
That's
he's
right,
in the town, and he's here, and he's working, and he's still charged to the school,
yes,
okay?
exactly,
Now,
bonus.
no one ever discussed making the resource officer the regular coverage deputy in the summer months, which is what he is now.
We did when Andy Derby was on, I'm pretty
But
positive.
that's not what we're working with. That contract was killed. That contract was written
Yes,
out,
I know.
and after we had an election in March,
And we voted.
we reestablished a contract with them,
Mhm.
okay? And that was never discussed, for or against what happened to Andre in the summer. Perhaps it's an oversight.
I think
It was
an
predominantly Linda and myself that sat in the meeting with Roger, okay? And I'll take full blame for it, but it was never discussed, because why would it change from what it was before?
Exactly.
So, shame on us, but I still don't think that we want, this extra coverage is fine, it'll fill in the blanks for the nighttime coverage, but,
And then once
and again,
fall comes, we're back to our regular hours.
Sherry, we're paying for a service that we don't want to pay for.
Are we sure? I mean, I know you read
You keep
the area,
saying that.
the area thing, but I mean, area can be read two different ways. Are we sure area means nighttime, or does that mean
What I'm concerned-
downtown,
what-
Yes.
like a physical downtown, or
What I'm concerned with
That's
is
what it is.
mutually agreed.
yeah?
So, my part of asking for GPS and logs
Was for the
Was for the area.
area.
was for the area. So
Yes.
that's what we're trying to look at. We're not gonna prove anything because nothing was brought as I had asked at this meeting. No records whatsoever. I got a blank look when it was brought up. And clearly, the email went out to Michael and the rest of us, and Michael responded to the sheriff. So he did not bring the material that we had asked for. I know for a fact that they can go back 2 years in that GPS system, just working with prior sheriffs. So that right there, I think we just move forward, hold them accountable each month for this information
Yes.
that we're asking for, and take it at month by month basis. We're gonna have to be able to approve that, where were they for 8 hours? How come I only see the vehicle there?
They're fine, I agree with you.
But we can talk this till we're blue in the face, until we are able to prove or not prove. He's been given notice. So, by this information, we're gonna be able to see, does he have people? What is he doing? What are these people doing within that time frame? It should be all reportable.
I understand that,
Yeah,
and I agree wholeheartedly.
yes.
Now I'm gonna ask you, the contract's very specific, it's a 5-year agreement, and the costs escalate every year, okay? And how are we gonna, we have a windfall this year that we can cover our butts because we could reinvest the COVID money that they claim is what it's related to, okay? Now, how do we budget for it next year? Is it gonna be far and above
Well, I
what
think,
that contract says?
I think we need to revisit the whole,
Well, it's a 3-year contract.
yeah, it's a 3-year, goes until 24.
24.
Yeah.
It says there's a dispute clause. Maybe we ask to sit down and
Yep.
have a couple of us sit down and say, hey, we would like varying coverage.
Yep.
And I think that would be the first step. That's what this, shall first attempt to resolve it through negotiations, which probably in hindsight we should have done that prior to holding a meeting.
Yeah.
That would have been the honorable thing per the
Yes.
contract. I mean, unfortunately, we
Listen.
didn't do that.
I know nobody likes to listen to me, okay? And I'm gonna stop talking, but those issues were raised at that meeting. And they simply went to the big book of excuses and said nothing, okay? In your case, they didn't give you an answer.
They didn't
In
give-
my cases, I didn't get an answer. Your cases, they didn't get an answer.
And I honestly think the public needed to be involved with this, and
And they were.
they were. They were.
So maybe that being the case,
Yep.
I think we ask for a meeting and say, we would like to resolve some of this.
I would like to get through the first reports, just see what they send us before we have this meeting, and then we can say, hey, this is what we asked for publicly.
Do we know when we have coverage this week?
No, I haven't seen anything,
Well, there you go. That's the first stumble.
so.
We're gonna get a schedule of when we get coverage.
Why don't you reach out to Grismore, who's the one that does the schedule?
That's exactly correct.
I know Andre's been here all week long, well, today, and he also came in Saturday night, and he also came in Sunday night, uncharged,
And you can use my name, or you can use the select
just to see
board.
how things are on those nights, taking a
Just
tour through town.
Email them and tell them
Check
we have not
things out.
received a
That's
schedule
on Saturday.
Yeah,
for the month or the week.
just to see things, he
And then
didn't
we
charge it, it's
expect
not
to
in
see
the books
this.
or anything.
Well, that's not fair either.
No, it's not, and that's what I told him, but he says, I wanna do it, and he goes, I do a lot more than this that people don't realize that I don't put on the books. I come to town, I just live not far from here, I come through town quite often. You know what I mean, he does do that,
I understand that.
so,
I
And-
think money talks. We're the ones paying for this.
Mhm.
I think
Well, and
they need, I think, just my opinion, we need to sit down with them and really clarify some things. Number one, when they need to be here. And when they need to be here, I mean, the whole scheduling thing. And then provide them with a list of things they need to send us with their invoice, not just an invoice.
Right.
To prove we're getting what we're paying for, and make sure they clearly understand. You don't prove to us you're doing your job, you're not gonna get paid.
And we don't need great detail in that report. They provide us an annual report for the town book, right? And it says we had 300 domestic disputes and
yeah,
14 traffic violations and a animal control issue, whatever. But they should just tell us statistically what they did in the past month. And we
I
used to
think
get
if they
those
know if we're
originally.
watching them, If
Yeah.
we're keeping an eye, we're paying attention.
I know.
I think they're gonna be more sensitive to what we want.
Maybe initially. I mean, I heard that conversation at the end of that meeting. Yeah, they'll step up to the plate now. Give them a few months.
Well, you've been on the board before, I've seen
I
it
know.
before.
I know.
Things are gonna get better for a while.
Yep,
They will,
They're
and
gonna
they-
go
and
right
they'll
back.
go downhill. They'll go downhill.
that's the way it is in everything,
But,
every business, everywhere.
No, I think we need, proof that they're actually in town, and that's what I'm looking for, because I've heard on 2 separate occasions now that they're hanging out in Enosburg because they don't like patrolling Richford. And when that's the case, they're down there on our dime, and that's not
They
right.
shouldn't be paid for it.
Exactly.
But, I mean, do we know that that's true?
Yes.
Okay, because there is a supervisor in the area, so maybe one's the supervisor and maybe one's the Enosburg deputy. If there's 2 cars, that would be 2 people.
Yeah.
And so without a schedule, we don't know if there's anybody here or not. Okay, those 2 cars might be legitimate, and believe me, I'm not standing up for the sheriff's department. But, what we used to always hear under the old contracts was, somebody that lives out on the end of McAllister Road is just as important to have a sheriff drive by their house as number 1 Main Street.
It is, as long as they don't spend 8 hours up there.
Well, but
Right,
I
how are you
agree.
gonna regulate it?
GPS.
Well, you know you're not gonna get that from them.
It's something that we have a right to request. It's something
Well, I
that,
think
Put
that
it in
brings,
writing.
I think that brings us back to the area of concern. Obviously, Dead End Road, Stevens Mills, or McAllister Road is most likely not an area of concern. I think that, we have identified
unless
the
they're
court-
investigating something.
something, yeah.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I see somebody go by on a Sunday afternoon. I question what's the need to be here.
Right.
I mean,
See someone who goes through with New York plates or something like that. Well,
no, I'm saying the sheriff.
oh, yeah.
A sheriff comes up my road on a Sunday afternoon. I'm like, either there's a purpose or there isn't. But I mean, if there's not a purpose, I don't think it's a joyride is the thing.
Right.
But that goes to the contract. Our areas of concern, and I think we as a town get to identify those areas, and I think we've identified those as Village of Richford right now. This is the highest part of it. So I think our first step is let's identify. Maybe Andy, you're the Ted, one other person here, sit down and have a meeting.
Yeah.
And
How about written communication? Talk is cheap, okay? If we want areas of emphasis, the easiest way to get them is to communicate it in writing. And then they can't say, oh, I didn't know what you wanted.
Well, we kind of did that already and it didn't pan out.
well, again, I think all of that will stem from
Yes.
a meeting. We can ask for that written stuff. I don't think we can ask for it beforehand. I mean,
No, I'm saying we write a letter telling them what we want. They said at the meeting, and I said specifically, it's even in the minutes, I said, we all recognize what the problems are in town, and we just want them to go away. And so do we, said the sheriff. But they're not here or staffed enough to know what we consider the problems to be. And if we get 60 complaints about ATVs, something needs to be done about it.
okay.
And
I mean, if that's what the rest of the board thinks, to send them a written letter expressing our areas of concern, that's one option.
I would say,
I would advocate for a meeting first.
I would like to sit down
we had one last week, and
and do. No, just.
they know the
like
dance steps,
one-on-one or
okay?
two-on-two
I
or
would say,
something like
thank
that.
you for meeting with us last week, just to reemphasize some of the points that the town of Richford would like to see happen are,
Again,
Meeting.
there's a dispute clause in that contract.
that's fine.
I think that warrants
They would be
us.
happy to get rid of us, that's the problem.
Well, that's one of the problems. We don't have a large leg to stand on. I think we have to honor the contract
I
and
think we should
follow the provisions of that, at least to start with.
I get what you're saying.
So Michael, you're gonna request tomorrow what we'd ask for.
Got that right there.
Alright. So the question is, do we wanna spend the extra money on the remainder of the summer?
I make a motion to.
I don't think we're gonna spend much of it. I mean, you were talking, I don't know, how many shifts are you thinking of picking up?
I would say 3
3 additional a week?
at night.
So you're talking potentially 4 weeks?
Yep.
Thursday,
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
They could do that.
I guess ask if that's a possibility.
So ask about.
And if it is, if we go ahead and approve 3 shifts, additional
I
shifts,
would. I personally do. I make a motion for that.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Alright,
And
Any
then
opposed? Hearing none, motion passed.
So that's for 3 additional shifts.
3 additional
for
shifts.
a week until school
So it's
starts.
what our normal,
I
Shifts
go
are back
1
up.
week over.
just for the
Yeah.
overlap.
Yeah. And then following, how do we want to proceed with our next
I would
communication?
like to have a meeting with them. I believe that should be the proper way to do it, have a meeting and then follow through with a letter summing up the minutes of our meeting, what we come to conclusions with. I would like to be part of that meeting with the sheriff's department. I don't know if anybody else would, but I would say Michael should be there to take notes, so that way there's notes being taken.
I would just recommend a more structured meeting this time. I
Yes,
understand the
yes,
public
just
No,
meeting.
not-
I was gonna suggest it be closed.
Yes,
Closed and, again, structured. Sit down with them.
Mm-hmm. I
Tell
agree.
them, this is what we need to have. Can you make it
Yes.
happen? Or
Have an agenda.
make it very formal, not a, not a pitch session, just a.
exactly,
This
a
is
formal
what-
meeting
Mhm, exactly.
to have results.
Yep.
Okay.
I do have another,
So we're gonna ask Michael to set that up as well when he's trying to do.
We wanna give it a week or two to see what is produced, then critique it from there, or you wanna set up another meeting right off?
You could go either way. I could go either way. I think.
I would like to see what they're going to give us, and then, you
so
know,
let's say, for like the middle of August, set it up,
yeah.
so it gives you 2 weeks.
Middle
So
to
should
middle
we-
to end. Set them up to middle to end of August.
Should we wait until the next meeting, because I'll be around at the same time? Just like to see what, like, review,
I
what
can do that.
they did.
Okay.
Totally code, I've been asked several times when we're gonna have a meeting with them. They had asked for a meeting.
Who's what?
We can set it up anytime, or is it just during regular, what kind of meeting are they looking
Well,
for?
they were looking for a meeting with the sheriff's department, then.
I think we tackle the sheriff's department.
Yeah,
on
then
one
Vasa,
way.
they were hoping to have everybody together to kind of, everybody talk, is what they were looking for.
Were they aware of last week's meeting?
So that
Yes
would've
and
been
no, I think we advertised it, we didn't really advertise it, you know what I mean? We had it out there for public, but they're waiting for me, I guess, just for dealing with forward, not the sheriff's contract or anything.
Well, it's fine. They're not the people that are breaking the rules,
No, they are not.
and that's the problem. So
Yeah.
I think we're spinning our wheels.
I think that's
they-
why, because people are actually basically pulling them off the street, accusing them of being the problem, and that's not
So
true.
we know that's not the problem, and,
We know that's not the
that's-
problem.
you know, that's misinformation amongst the public there, so
And
I wouldn't get too worked up about that.
Well, they keep asking, I was asking it today when their meetings were scheduled for it, I'm like, I don't know, I'll bring it up tonight.
okay, and I think most of you saw my response related to Fish and Wildlife today.
Yeah.
I spoke with them. They can't do anything in the public right-of-ways or anything like that. They can maintain the trails and so forth.
Right.
We don't get complaints about
The
side-by-sides on the trail,
Right.
okay? So as I said in the email, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd be interested to see what that's the state fish and game,
Yeah, Fish and Wildlife.
fish and wildlife, and yeah, I mean, I've never actually seen them. I've seen.
Oh, I've seen them.
I've been pulled over by them.
Okay.
Like our
I mean,
main
I know I've seen the sheriff's department has a side by side, and I've seen them on the trails. But I
They have
don't.
electric bicycles now too. Which they can take off-road if they want,
Okay, any other
yes.
business?
I'm genuinely concerned about the information network amongst this board. Okay,
Michael and I had a conversation about this, and
so did I.
about your email, and I think the decision is what I had asked Michael was to anything that involves any part of the select board, that email goes out to all of us.
And what I was gonna say, today's email was perfect. It said that there was a break-in at the town garage. Anybody wants to follow up on that or needs more information, they can do so. But it's embarrassing to be surprised the number of times that any of us have been surprised recently, whether it's whatever. And it goes all the way back to Alan's problems with determinant of traffic on the roads like when we're fixing a water main or something, there's no flaggers, there's no, process to protect the public. And I think that's what we're here to do, protect the public.
And I do, the other thing is I do realize sometimes there's phone calls made to individuals, but it should be followed up with an email as well.
It should just, it'd be so simple to come out of this office. We have paid employees for the town that basically hear everything. And a simple one-liner is all it takes. You hit the address book for select board and boom, type in, there's 27 chickens running around on Main Street. Okay, period. Well, I'm just saying, but, and it doesn't take much,
I agree, I agree.
Okay, I agree.
All right, anything else?
Trash day. Are we going with that? I mean, I know Kylie said she had some money.
I'd like to know what she had for money, I guess. I wish she was here tonight because of that. So that's something that we should check to see. I'm for it, but
I'm for it too.
Alright, just like we're winding down here a little bit. Last year we did them, I think, one in early summer and one in August, so.
right now down on 50 Friar Street, you could probably do that.
Well, you laugh. Last year,
it was very successful.
it was, but no, what I was gonna say is the second one we had, one household, through a police effort, actually filled an entire dumpster. Because they actually found, the police in an investigative work, found somebody's mail in that refuge dumped on the side of the road. And they were, either you bring it to get rid of it. So, I mean, it was successful in that sense, and the police, the police efforts were successful.
Yeah.
In that one.
And I gotta tell you, 30 Thomas, which is a problem, a real bad problem, it's on its way to being fixed.
And it looks a lot better because the landlord
Well,
was involved.
There's the mother or sister or whoever it is,
Yeah.
they told John they would get it cleaned up on a schedule. It wasn't drop dead tomorrow, but I was down there last week and there was a big trailer in the driveway filled with all the garbage bags from the backyard. About 2/3 of the tires looked to be gone.
Oh, good.
And there was some guy working on the house even, doing some carpentry repairs, so.
Nice. I would like to.
Good.
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn
I want to do one in executive session
pertaining.
to guidance for town meeting.
So it's personal.
First one, shows up first.
All right, so we don't plan on having any motions or anything going on after this
Okay.
meeting, so we can get a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
I make motion on the executive.
Fine, all in favor?
I
Okay.